This is the BULLS Copperhead EVO HD. It's the wave version of the bike. They do have a high step, more traditional diamond. It's going to be a little bit stiffer, and it offers 2 bottle cage bosses versus just 1. In this case, both bikes use the same drive system from Bosch. So we've got the PowerTube 750, their highest capacity battery, along with the Bosch Performance Line CX. That's their mountain bike motor. It's just really torquey, class 1, so up to 20 miles per hour or 25 kilometers per hour in Europe. And then we have the LED remote display. This is a cross-country electric bike. So it's a step above hybrid. You get a longer travel fork, 120 millimeters in this case, and a little bit more slack head tube angle. Okay, so you can take those hits. They're really designed to ride across country, you know, on a trail kind of like this, maybe something with a little bit more roots and rocks. You've got that longer travel suspension to help you, and in this case we're actually using 27.5. That's the 650B wheel size, and the tires here are Schwabe Smart Sam with 2.6 inch width, so they are the smallest of the plus size family. There's 2.6, 2.8, or 3.0, so you get a little bit more width and higher air volume. That's going to give you some stability, some traction. It's just a bit more forgiving, and on a bike that weighs about 56 pounds for a hardtail, it's nice to have tires that are just a little bit more float. I actually look this as almost like a hybrid, okay? Yeah, we have the slack head tube angle and the longer travel suspension. It's definitely trail capable, a nice drivetrain and everything, but because of the added weight, and I think because of these accessory mounts, this would make a really good hybrid bike. You could use this as a commuter if you wanted. You've got mounting points for a rear rack back here, even a rear fender. They even threw in a little mud guard up front. That's an SR Suntour thing. It's got a little lip in front so you don't get mud splashing up into your eyes, and then protects a little bit of the back. But with this wide down tube, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of mud and water splashing up into your face. You might get it on your shoes and shins. Overall, I look at this as just a really fun bike with some really like high quality components. Now it is $55.99, so it's fairly expensive. So I'm going to walk through some of the components and features of this bike. It's available in 4 frame sizes, 1 color, so you're kind of seeing that here. It's almost this like gunmetal gray or metallic dark gray with black accents. Up here, the suspension fork, I mentioned 120 millimeters of travel, SR Suntour Litro 34, so 34 millimeter stanchions. These are steel. They weigh a little bit more than anodized aluminum alloy. We have what it kind of blue connotates compression, but it's really just sort of open close. So it's kind of a lockout here, and you can reduce the bobbing if you are on a flatter, smoother trail and you don't want to lose that efficiency. I think that's nice. And then of course we have rebound adjust. So that's kind of how quickly it rebounds when you take a big hit. It is an air fork, so we've got adjustment over here as well. You can sag this to your body weight. You can set the air pressure to match your comfort level and the type of riding that you're doing. This is also boost hub spacing with a 15 millimeter through axle. So the boost hub spacing is 110 millimeters versus 100, gives you a sturdier spoke, bracing angle, quick release up front. The through axle is just a lot stiffer than a skewer, a basic 9 millimeter quick release skewer, and that's what we have in the rear. So this appears to be 142 millimeter hub spacing with a more traditional quick release skewer 9 millimeter axle. Quick release front and rear, and on the saddle clamp there, I think that's really cool. I mean, if you are using this as a kind of a get around town, you could toss it in the back of your car. You can do trail maintenance a little bit more easily, and that's what I see on mountain bikes. Another thing I noticed is it doesn't come stock with a kickstand, but it does have mounting provisions right there to add one, and that's why I've got it leaned up against this post. Kickstands really come in handy in those moments where you've turned it into kind of a get around town bike. So I love that they didn't forget about it. Otherwise you're going to have to use ones that sort of like clamp onto the tubing on the left hand side there, and they just don't work as well. Another thing I noticed, there's no slap guard back here. This is kind of a demo bike. It's not built perfectly to spec, so I want to mention that. This one does not come with a suspension seat post, but that's another way that you can improve comfort. 30.9 millimeter diameter, 350 millimeter length. And the tires here, these Smart Sams, they do come tubeless ready, so you can reduce the overall weight of the bike, the rims, the tires, everything. These are fairly nice, and it looks like we've got thicker gauge spokes in the rear. Both of these are 32 hole, and the tire pressure range on these are 20 to 45, so it's actually a fairly low pressure range. If you want to go really low, again, riding tubeless is going to ensure that you don't get those pinch flaps flats quite as easily. Coming down to the crank arms, these are 165 millimeters. I'm used to seeing 170s, a little bit shorter. Maybe you're going to reduce pedal strikes on trail obstacles. Nice Well-Go pedals with the grip tape, kind of a skateboard sandpaper setup here. That's nice if you are wearing those city shoes and you just don't have those extra big knobs that could scrape your shins and get gunked up with mud and stuff. This is part of why I feel like, okay, you know, it's kind of set up like a hybrid. 38 tooth narrow wide chain ring up here, really like that because it's going to grab the chain a little bit better. It's not going to fly off as easily. And we've even got a kind of a keeper here, plastic keeper that's going to clear mud, debris, and keep that chain really from bouncing off. And you have two things there that are ensuring that the bike's gonna continue to ride. You're not gonna drop that chain. In the rear, this is a 10 speed, 11 to 46 tooth. That's a great spread. Shimano, we've got a Deore derailleur with the clutch, so you can open it up like that for when you're taking the wheel off and doing service. It's gonna be a little bit looser, more flexible, and then you put it in the up position to keep that chain from bouncing around when you're really going off-road or riding a little bit faster, and that also might keep the chips from happening. So I really like the drivetrain. And the shifters as well. Shimano Deore, we've got the two-way trigger, so you can use your thumb or your pointer finger like that, and then we have multi-shift on the low lever, so you can dump those gears. I like that. A lot of the SRAM hardware, it's like a single click, which is supposed to be a little bit easier on the drivetrain when you've got a mid-drive motor that's high-powered like the Bosch Performance Line CX. But one thing that does offer is shift detection. So the motor, this offers up to 85 Newton meters of torque. It's measuring your rear wheel speed, and in this case, there's no spoke magnet. They actually have a reader just tucked in right behind the calipers, and it's kind of mounted to the hub near the disc brake rotor. So rear wheel speed's taken care of, pedal cadence and pedal torque over 1,000 times per second. And then it's sensing kind of the pressure, and if it detects that the pressure has changed because of a shift, it reduces motor power so you don't bend the teeth, you don't snap your chain, that kind of thing. That's something that's fairly unique to Bosch. It's software driven, it's not perfect, but it's worth calling out. The motor itself weighs about 6.39 pounds is what they say, and we've got a plastic cover on it in this case to keep it maybe a little bit nicer, and it just cleans up the look of the bike, sort of like we have a plastic shield covering the battery pack. Yeah, so from here you can see that nice bezel, Performance Line CX. It's a great motor. Of course, it uses a little bit more energy, it produces some more noise, but it's going to give you the power to really handle trails. We got to talk about the brakes next. What you're going to see is Tektro, but they actually say they're going to spec Shimano. I think this comes down to supply chain and what's going to be available just on the open market. Both of them are great setups in my opinion. This is sort of a 2 or 3 finger lever adjustable reach. We've got 203 millimeter rotor up front, extra large. That's going to give you a great mechanical advantage to support some of the, you know, higher speeds when you're trying to stop with the extra weight. Your body weight and everything shifts forward, so having a bigger rotor, it's going to cool a little bit easier, and it's going to help control that larger wheel, and especially with the through axle and stuff. I mean, this is great. It's even got quad piston calipers. Again, Tektro Gemini, but we might see Shimano on the final build. 180 millimeter rotor in the back, which is like, yeah, you know, kind of standard. Dual piston calipers, looks like fairly big pistons. And then this is that kickstand provision that I was talking about before. By the way, this saddle is Z-Cure, and I've seen that marking a couple other places, like on the handlebar. I think that is BULLS in-house branding, so it doesn't just say BULLS everywhere. You might notice this little black cover right here. That's actually for the battery charge port, and it's positioned perfectly. It's up high, easy to reach. You're not gonna like hit your head on the handlebar. A lot of times you'll see charging ports down here for Bosch e-bike systems, and then you're, you know, kind of in the way of the crank arms and stuff. You'll notice, by the way, that when I cycle backwards, the chain doesn't go backwards, but we've got that kind of clicking friction so that if you slip off while riding, this isn't gonna spin around out of control. And the battery pack really plays a star role on the bike. You know, it's high capacity. We've got the basic display, but there's an optional Kiox 300 that would give you more readouts, plus a smartphone app. But one drawback is you can't really charge the smartphone app on the bike. Even though you've got the big battery, there are no USB ports. There actually is one port at the base of this LED remote, but it doesn't support third-party accessories. It's really for like firmware upgrades and stuff. So to me, that was disappointing. You know, again, one thing that's cool though is BULLS actually has their own solution for lights here. You can see this little reflector, but if I pull on this, it's just magnetically attached. You can purchase some of their aftermarket MonkeyLink accessories. There's a headlight, There's a rear light, which it's a little bit low. You might get blocked by that rear tire since it's so tall, but you know, maybe if someone's up in a car, they can see you, and it has decent side visibility. They also have a fender with a light built into it, so that is so cool. Bulls even has a MonkeyLink magnetic twist bottle interface. I didn't see it on this bike. It might be on the high step, or maybe because it's a demo bike, it's not here, but underneath the MonkeyLink interface is just a standard bottle cage mount. So that's cool. You got a lot of choices there. Okay, I flipped the bike back around. I want to compliment where they've positioned the locking cylinder. It's just like the charging port on the left-hand side of the bike. It's up high, it's easy to reach, it's not going to get gunked up, you don't have to reach down. But if you don't have a kickstand and you're leaning against a pole like I am, that battery is pretty heavy. It's like 9.4 pounds, and you've got this plastic shield down here that kind of, you got to take this off first. So there's a little lever like this, and then it just falls off the rest of the way. It doesn't lock to the frame the way the battery does. So if you were at a bike rack, or if you're riding hard and this fell off, you know, thankfully I think it'd be pretty affordable to replace it, just a piece of black plastic, but it is a little bit more vulnerable in that sense. And now we have the battery that you can see. I think what I'm actually going to do is lay the bike down on its side, because I think that's what a lot of people would end up doing. The best way to do this is to lean it on the non-drivetrain side. So on the disc brake side, somewhere flat, so you don't have sticks and rocks, you know, potentially touching and bending those disc brake rotors. There we go. Well, now you can really see the PowerTube 750. Pulled out the XPLUS code, ABUS key set. These are nice. It's sort of an above average interface, more secure, and you can match this to folding locks, chain locks, other accessories from ABUS, so you don't have to have multiple keys floating around your bag. I'm just going to insert this here, twist it to the right a little bit, and the battery steps out to that first position. So this is sort of the secure position, because if the bike was, you know, upright, we wouldn't want that to tumble out. Now, I love that even though we have a fender, there's still a decent amount of space here. Some of these bikes with the PowerTubes, it's really crowded. It's difficult to get to this, but that's not the case here. There's a little button on top, so we're gonna press that, and it unlocks it the rest of the way. And now we can gently take this out, lift it up. Yeah, there's the little LED charge level readout. The same interface for charging as we saw on the left side of the frame. And this thing is 36 volts, 20.1 amp hours for roughly 750 watt hours of capacity. This is the charger. It's the smart system charger, so it kind of matches all the rest of the motor, the display, the battery. I want to mention that this stuff isn't backwards compatible to the older Bosch stuff. So you'll see like the Bosch PowerTube 625 and 500, that's last generation. And in fact, there's a separate app for this generation, which is called the Bosch eBike Flow instead of Bosch eBike Connect. So just keep that in mind. It can get a little bit confusing. In some ways, it's a bummer that some of these accessories aren't cross-compatible, because if you have a partner or a friend who has the 625 and maybe you want to go for a long ride and borrow the batteries, they have a different interface. It's a different setup. So anyway, the charger's pretty nice, weighs about 1.6 pounds. It's a 4 amp charger, so it's a little bit faster than the 2 amp chargers that I see from most of the other companies. It's got a removable wall side plug. I think that's about it. I'm gonna put this back on the bike. Just line the bottom up like that, and then start to push it into place. One of my complaints is that I can't just push it. There's actually that square hinge right there, so I have to actively twist and unlock, and it's spring-loaded while pushing the battery in. For me, that's a bit of a bummer, and it might be another security measure from ABUS, from Bosch. The bike feels very solid, and the weight is all really low and centered. You'll notice this extra piece of tubing here just to help keep the back from shimmying and kind of have that frame flex feel sometimes with these wave bikes. It's very unique to see a cross-country, a truly capable cross-country electric bike with such a low standover height. That's so approachable. I'm gonna boot this thing up and walk through the LED remote with you here. We have a light sensor on top, a power button. I've pressed it. Goes through this little dance and the LEDs light up. The battery is completely full right now, so each one of these blue dots, it represents a 20% increment. There are 5 of them. Now, the first one, before it goes to completely off, it's going to change to white, and that represents a 10% step down. So we actually have 10% increments, which is much more precise than 20%. I'm grateful that they did that. That's pretty cool logic. You might see a little dot right there as well. That's for the Bosch anti-lock braking system, which we don't have on this bike, but is a pretty cool feature. We might see more of that in the future. We have left and right, which kind of does nothing. That would really interface with the optional Bosch Kiox 300 LCD. It's color LCD, really nice display. And then we've got this select button, kind of a diamond shape. And then the buttons we really care about, which are plus and minus. That's really what it's all about here with the LED remote. The plus is going to raise the level of assist. So we just went from none to eco, and we're going up to the blue, the purple, and the red. So you really don't even need to read this. There are no writing. You don't have to focus on it. You just kind of get this color feedback. A couple other things worth mentioning here. If we hold the minus button for a second, you'll see this little pattern where it sort of does this dance, and now the bike will walk itself forward. And that could be really handy if you do get a flat tire, or you're trying to climb a hill or come out of a cellar or something like that. It's a nice feature, and I just wanted to walk through that. And then we have a headlight button there if we hold the plus button, and that would be great if we had the optional MonkeyLink integrated lights. I love that. A lot of mountain bikes don't have lights, and this one, considering again it would make an excellent hybrid or sort of an all-around bike, good for any type of use. I just love how everything's labeled on this and how intuitive it is. So with that said, I think I'm just gonna hop on and go for a little ride. I like to ride in that EMTB. It's a very dynamic mode where the harder you push, the more power you're gonna get. But if you're easing back, it's not gonna overwhelm you the way that, you know, turbo's sort of like redlining it all the time, super powerful. EMTB is more natural and smooth, so I'm gonna do that. Really nice. Yeah, I put a little bit more power into the system and the motor responds. And I'm gonna do some shifting. Remember, it's got that shift detection. It's pretty cool. Okay. Take it up to turbo. Yep, I can immediately feel it kick in. Yeah, I don't have to push as hard. The bike just takes over. Fairly quickly get up to that 20-mile-per-hour top speed, which again is a class 1. It's allowed on more bike trails and mountain bike trails, so it's the right choice for a bike like this. I'm gonna shift down here and do the high cadence pedaling that I mentioned earlier. You can see the motor keeping up with me. Beautiful, very responsive. I'm a big fan of Bosch. You know, they have this 2-year comprehensive warranty. A lot of dealers, they work with a bunch of brands. BULLS is one. They work with Trek, they work with Cube, Reese and Mueller. Kind of top of the line stuff. My complaints here, again, it's a little bit heavier, tends to cost a little bit more, but it's high quality. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just a perfect day for this. Really had fun with you guys. This is the BULLS Copperhead Evo HD. For the full written review on this, check out ElectricBikeReview.com. I've measured all the specs and stuff by hand, including the wheelbase, which is a little bit longer because of that slacker head tube. The weight, again, 56 pounds. Just anything you might want to know. I love that they've got 4 sizes on this. You can really dial it in. I do have a comparison tool back at the site, and the idea is you can sort of look at different price points and different brands, and then there's a forum, so you can talk to people about the best accessories or what their experience has been with a company like BULLS. I've been reviewing bikes with these guys for a long time. This is a free review. I'm just, you know, adding content to the site and having fun out here. Got a North America headquarters in California, but it's really a German brand. They sell all over the world. I've had fun with this. I love you guys. We'll see you next time.